Hello everyone and welcome to Myth or Must Be True. I'm your host with the most, Jahan Tadron. And along with my two debunkers, Sarah Abdu and Blake Anuskowitz, we're going to be looking to debunk some myths and stereotypes concerning eating disorders. We're going to have two teams facing off, the Kosher Queens and the Golden State Nuggets. They don't know anything that's going on, and we're going to ask them some questions concerning the myths and stereotypes revolving eating disorders. Have fun, and let's hope you learn something.
Alright, category 1, the history of eating disorders. So question number 1, for the Kosher Queens. Self-starvation was found in historical accounts in the late 4th century.
Must be true.
Correct.
Okay, question 2, for the Golden State Nuggets. Also in category number 1. So for binge eating disorder, became an official eating disorder in the early 1990s during the great fast food explosion in America. Myth or must be true?
Myth. Correct. It is a myth. Officially, binge eating disorder became an eating disorder in the DSM in 2013, not the 1990s.
Okay. For question 3, for the Kosher Queens. Myth or must be true? Gerald Russell was the first person to formally characterize bulimia in the year 1979.
Myth.
Incorrect. That is must be right.
For category number 1, question number 4, for the Golden State Nuggets. Myth or must be true? Anorexia nervosa and bulimia nervosa became official disorders at the same time.
Myth.
Correct! Anorexia was actually formally characterized 100 years before bulimia was. Here are our scores after the first category. We'll be back after this short break.
Alright, category number 2, eating disorders 101, assessment and diagnosis. So question number 1 for the Kosher Queens. Myth or must be right? There are 3 different diagnosable eating disorders in the DSM-5. The most current DSM, anorexia nervosa, bulimia nervosa, and binge eating disorder.
Must be true.
Wrong! That is a myth. There are actually over 7 different types of eating disorders. Pica, rumination disorder, avoidant restrictive food intake disorder, anorexia, bulimia, binge eating disorder, other specified eating disorder, and unspecified eating disorder. Each has very different symptoms and each affects different age groups and genders differently. No 2 eating disorders look the same, and each disorder is mutually exclusive, which means you can't be diagnosed with, for example, binge eating disorder and pica at the same time.
Question number 2 for the Golden State Nuggets. Myth or must be right? In comparison to other psychological disorders, such as anxiety and depression, those suffering with eating disorders show pretty good recovery rates.
It's a myth.
Correct! Those suffering with eating disorders have one of the lowest recovery rates in comparison to other psychological disorders. Many patients with eating disorders unfortunately don't survive either due to suicide or malnutrition. In addition, eating disorder research has minimal funding and campaigns available to help those affected with the best treatment possible.
Question number 3 for the Kosher Queens. Myth or must be right? Eating disorders only affects women.
I don't think so. Yes. That's a myth.
Is that your final answer?
Yes. Yes.
Correct! It is a myth! Eating disorders affects everybody.
Question number 4 for the Golden State Nuggets. Myth or must be right? Anorexia nervosa has the highest death rate of any psychiatric illness.
Must be true.
Unfortunately, you are correct. This is mainly caused by suicide or denial that their eating habits and disorder are seriously affecting their health. And that concludes category number 2. Right now in the lead, we have the Golden State Nuggets, and the Kosher Queens are close behind.
What is Pika.
So pica is actually an eating disorder where you eat a lot of random things. So a lot of pregnant women get pica when they're pregnant. They'll be eating things like chalk.
Pickles and ice cream.
No, that's normal though.
Dirt.
Dirt, that's a good
It's
one.
not actual food. Like, yeah.
Dirt.
Do shoelaces count as a question?
Category number 3, psychosocial and cultural basis of eating disorders. Question number 1 for the kosher queens. Myth or must be true? Eating disorders are caused by the world we live in and is purely due to cultural and societal factors like the media.
Myth.
Correct. Although cultural and societal factors can play a role in developing an eating disorder, it doesn't cause an eating disorder. Eating disorders are much more complicated, and nowadays experts are beginning to think of it as mainly as a biological illness rather than a byproduct of our culture.
Question number 2 for the Golden State Nuggets. Myth or must be true? The ratio of eating disorders in females and males is 10 to 1.
Myth.
Unfortunately, that is the truth. The ratio is 10 to 1. One theory that may help explain the disproportionate ratio is the objectification theory. This theory pretty much argues that women are trained to care about their bodies and they learn that looks matter by growing up in a culture in which women are seen as, quite literally, objects.
Question number 3 for the kosher queens. Myth or must be true? The media only targets women.
Myth.
Correct. Lately, the media has been also objectifying men as well. There's a clear difference that you can see with our old superheroes and our superheroes today. The superheroes today are very chiseled and focuses on your muscle. So it's kind of opposite of women's objectification of wanting to lose weight, being very underweight. It's more about bulking up.
At the end of round 3, the kosher queens come storming back to tie it up 4-4.
Category number 4, the neurobiology of eating disorders. So question number 1, myth or must be true? Appetite is regulated by one region of the brain.
Myth. I'm not sure about that.
Correct. It is a myth. The decision to eat is controlled by many regions of the brain. It spans over different circuits. The brain considers 3 circuits: the salient circuit, the dorsal cognitive circuit, and the ventral limbic circuit when making this decision to eat. These circuits balance between many bodily sensations, which include planning and inhibition, and emotional reward, energy needs, etc.
Number 2, myth or must be true? Patients with eating disorder have an abnormal response to hunger.
Must be true.
Correct. Must be true. In a healthy individual, hunger increases motivation and the brain has a heightened sense of sensitivity. In patients with eating disorder, the brain conveys a message that associates eating with risky behavior, causing anxiety in the patient. Thus, inhibiting eating actually produces a reward in the brain of an eating disorder patient because inhibition of eating removes a patient's anxiety.
Question number 3 for the Golden State Nuggets. Although those with eating disorder have a different perception towards food, the raw sensations of food are similar to those of a healthy individual.
Must be true.
Incorrect. Myth. In a study conducted by Wagner et al., patients with eating disorder exhibited significantly less response in the brain areas of the insula and the caudate nucleus compared to control subjects during an fMRI of the brain after blindly tasting 10% sucrose water. The insula is a brain region that has the important responsibility of regulating the self-awareness of one's body state. This includes considering temperature, touch, hunger, muscular and visceral sensations, and more. An increased signal in the insula alerts a change in the body state, and without the signal, the brain cannot make good connections between sensation and emotional processing and cognitive functions. So
At
essentially,
the end of the 4th round, kosher queens with 5, Golden State Nuggets with 5.
Final category, category number 5, medical complications. Question number 1, myth or must be true? For the kosher queens. If you have a normal or high body mass index, then you can't be malnourished.
Myth. Myth.
Correct. One can be malnourished even with a normal or high BMI as long as they lose over 10% of their body weight.
Question number 2 for the Golden State Nuggets. Myth or must be true? Eating disorders have an effect on one's brain, GI system, and their growth in adolescence, but leave the rest of the body system alone to function normally.
That's a myth.
Correct. Almost every system in the body is affected by eating disorders.
Question number 3 for the Kosher Queens. Myth or must be true? Bradycardia, also known as a low heart rate, is the number 1 cause of death in individuals with an eating disorder.
Myth.
Sadly, that's incorrect. It must be right. Bradycardia is the number 1 leading cause of death in individuals with eating disorders.
Question number 4 for the Golden State Nuggets, our final question of the day. Myth or must be true? Eating disorders can be managed at home with the aid of WebMD, even if the condition is considered serious.
Myth.
Correct. If showing any symptoms, and especially if the symptoms are serious, one should go to the hospital for treatment immediately. Golden State Nuggets win 7-6 over the Kosher Queens, and that is the end of our game show.
The Golden State Nuggets win! See you next time on Myth or Must Be True.